Hey, you're watching Rapid MMA. This is Aldo versus Edgar breakdown for UFC 200, and this was a very difficult fight for me to break down. I've watched Aldo versus Edgar quite a few times now, and I think both these guys kind of need to have the same game plan coming in against each other. Although Frankie always keeps a good pace and works hard in each fight, I think in this one, he really needs to pressure Aldo. For Aldo, I felt like he was on autopilot sometimes during the fight. He was content with having a very basic counter-striking game. He was doing damage, but I think if he put together a few more combos and not have strayed from the leg kicks, it would have been a more clear decision, or at least maybe even a stoppage. And I scored their last fight for Aldo, but it was a close one. What I liked about Frankie in the last fight was his use of leg kicks, especially right away in the fight, the driving knee tap takedowns, and in the 5th round, he really started using combinations. Also, when he was deep in the pocket and exchanging, his strikes were more powerful, I think, than they were from at range. I think Frankie will need to set the pace he did in the 5th round of their last fight and apply it to the 1st round of the rematch. Throughout their first fight, Frankie really had difficulty at boxing range. Aldo basically owned that space, and he found his range early and was able to leg kick, jab, and counter Frankie coming in. I still see that being a problem for Frankie in this next fight too. That's where the risk will come in. Depending on how Aldo looks and what his game plan will be, Frankie has to be prepared to take damage early and often, but that's the only way to really get Aldo working. First thing I want to see more of is kicks from range. Frankie did very well with this in their first fight. In addition to the leg kicks though, I want to see him go to the midsection and to the head, and I'm not talking about the spinning ones he does. I just mean like straight kicks to that body, and then maybe coming up high every now and then. I also like to see him stay a little farther out while doing this, just out of the range of Aldo's counters. Frankie did this very well in the first fight, but he stood a bit close, which allowed Aldo to counter. Frankie's damage is accumulative, and the way he threw kicks in the 3rd round and the 5th round were pretty much perfect. It also helped him set up combinations in the pocket. Second thing I want to see, more work deep in the pocket, clinch range striking. I think Frankie is very good at generating power in close, but Aldo is very elusive and good at keeping away. What helped Frankie to get in that close was using his patented driving knee tap. Sometimes people think those are simply takedown attempts, but they're not. They are attempts at times to get at the ground, but sometimes he'll abandon that takedown attempt, and then he'll just come up and start throwing strikes right in the pocket. This worked very well for him in this first fight, especially the 4th round. If he can do this in every round, multiple times, it makes Aldo work and it opens up that pocket range. Which leads me to the next thing I think Frankie needs to do is throw multi-level combinations in the pocket, body-body-head combos. This is what made the 5th round really interesting. These exchanges aren't without risk though. Frankie's style and size simply leave him susceptible to those counters, but I mean, he's been battling that his whole career. So maximizing what worked for him in the first fight and doubling down, especially early, probably will pay dividends in the later rounds. In addition, we've seen Aldo's chin seemingly begin to deteriorate after the rematch with Mendes, and then he was KO'd against McGregor. So if Frankie can land a powerful right hand on the inside, like he did against Chad Mendes, we can maybe see Aldo rocked or possibly even knocked out. So don't discount Frankie's power at this stage in his career. So for Frankie Edgar, it's about picking up where he left off. He knows Aldo dominates the boxing range, so it'll be interesting to see how he counters that. Maybe baiting more with the jab to get Aldo to strike, then counter him could be an option, rather than always being the one that initiates the exchanges. He also needs to make Aldo work much harder in this fight with grappling exchanges, clinch work, and multi-level combinations in the pocket. Frankie's conditioning and heart is some of his best qualities, so to win this fight, he'll need to ramp it up. Aldo simply can't keep the same pace Frankie does, and we see Frankie begin to work Aldo in rounds 3, 4, and 5. Finally, I think it would be interesting to see what Frankie can do with kickboxing, work kicks in all levels so that way he doesn't have to risk being picked apart at boxing range. I'm not sure to what extent this will be effective, but he did a good job of it in the first fight, but he was standing a little close like I mentioned earlier and getting countered. Jose Aldo is in an interesting position. He's coming off a loss where McGregor was able to perfectly bait Aldo and make him come forward. With McGregor's power, precision, and good reading of Aldo, he was able to put him away early. Who knows if this will be a good thing for Aldo? He can come back more motivated than ever, or he can be much too willing to make a statement, or maybe hesitant, and then he'll just create mistakes there. It's impossible to know, but Aldo is very experienced and he's always a dangerous fighter. I think he's going through a bit of a rough patch. I'm sure this whole experience has sucked for him, and hopefully he's used this time to reflect, regroup, and focus on the task at hand, which is Frankie Edgar. It's really hard to know how this loss has affected Jose mentally, and maybe even what he's focused on for training. In my opinion, I always give fighters the benefit of the doubt. Jose Aldo is a veteran and a long-time dominant champion. He's a smart guy, a great fighter, and he's a really good athlete on top of it. So Jose can't be too nervous to throw leg kicks in this fight. He needs to be much more confident in his takedown defense. Sure, he was taken down by Edgar, and he has a dangerous top game, but Aldo popped it back up to his feet and fended off takedowns very well throughout the fight. Kicking Frankie's lead leg is crucial in this fight, and the risk of a takedown is well worth it. Obviously, Frankie's mobility is the core of his game, and taking it away is the perfect game plan. It favors his counter-striking game, his cardio, takedown defense, and his ability to last in the later rounds. Leg kicks worked wonders early in their first fight, and I think it was the second round he started to knock Frankie off his feet. This has to happen again. I think Aldo being more aggressive in this fight would favor him too. He did a lot of counter-striking their last fight, which is fine because it worked. However, I think Frankie will find a way to make that hard for Aldo this time around. And Aldo's jab was super effective in the last fight, so using that again to set up combinations, it will surely work against Edgar. I'd like to see combinations ending in leg kicks. I also think it would be interesting if Aldo maybe initiates a takedown too. Throw Edgar off his game a little bit. Maybe Aldo doesn't need to commit to them, but changing levels and driving forward could change some of the dynamics of what Edgar's game plan might be. It's always good to have some element of surprise, and since Edgar always works at the same pace, a takedown attempt could really upset his rhythm and timing in my opinion. I really didn't know who to pick in this fight. I'll say this though, I don't see this fight the same way as many others. I keep reading that people aren't interested in this fight. They think this fight will go down the same way it did last time, and I kind of agree with that. Others are saying Aldo is finished. I think we're seeing two guys who really want that title back. They're sick of all the bullshit with McGregor. Aldo wants to make a statement, and Edgar wants to prove he won their last fight. And Aldo is still relatively young. He's still dangerous, and he's fighting someone he's familiar with. I think this will be the first fight ×2. Honestly, I think we'll see a war this time around because I believe neither guy will want to give up. I think I have to pick Edgar in this fight though. I think he can outwork Aldo. Edgar has looked really good lately, putting together some solid wins, an incredible knockout of Chad Mendes, which I never saw coming. That makes me more confident in his power, and I think that could change the vibe of this fight. It's all about being effective in kicking range, in the pocket, and takedowns. Edgar just needs to find a way not to get picked apart at boxing range like he did in their first fight. If he doesn't figure that out, I think he might end up on another losing decision. Simply put, he needs to risk it more and try to put his stamp on it, because another decision loss would fucking suck for Edgar. And I think Aldo is still dangerous. I'm confident we'll see a fresh Aldo, and I think he'll give Edgar a fucking really good fight this time around, at least hopefully. I can't disagree with anyone picking Aldo because I damn near picked against Edgar for the first time in this fight. However, as I said earlier, I think we'll see Edgar outwork Aldo. I think this is the best Edgar we've seen yet, and I'm picking him to win by a hard-fought decision victory. So let me know what you think in the comments on this fight. Also, please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed the content and share it with people so we can grow this content. I know this video is kind of squished together, put together at the last second, but I can't control the weather. So lastly, click the subscribe button. It would mean a lot. Thank you for watching Rapid MMA, and stay tuned for more UFC 200 content.